I'd actually warned Heathrow of concerns that we had with regard to the substations. I mean, from our perspective, this actually went back a few days because I'd actually warned Heathrow of concerns that we had with regard to the substations. And my concern was resilience. So the first occasion was to Team Heathrow Director on the 15th of the month of March. And then I also spoke to their Chief Operating Officer and Chief Customer Officer 2 days before regarding this concern. And it was following a couple of incidents of, unfortunately, theft of wire and cable around some of the power supply that on one of those occasions took out the lights on the runway for a period of time. That obviously made me concerned, and as such I'd raised the point that I wanted to understand better the overall resilience of the airport. Clearly Heathrow is a very significant hub operation. It has over 80 airlines operating through the airport. It is the hub for the UK and it's the major hub for Europe, we contest. And as such, we need to make sure that it is resilient. I mean, it is the most expensive airport in the world with regard to passenger charges. So from our perspective, that means we should actually have the best service, we should have the best infrastructure.
What would the cost of full power, or would the cost of full power resilience be worth it?
If we were to refit sort of a ring round Heathrow that would give you that full resilience, the best estimates of our engineers is that it would exceed £1 billion to refit today.
I'm keen to understand a bit more about how the balance sheet reflects the approach to risk management. How much is spent each year, not on the fun stuff that brings in more passengers, but on the boring stuff, the maintenance side of things. And just to sort of draw people's attention, we found a report by a consultancy firm called Jacobs in 2014, which did connect the potential for power outage, even briefly, to have very significant effects across the entire airport. And I know that you said that, in your knowledge, there hasn't been a board discussion specifically to turn down an investment proposal for something like an on-site ring main since then. But can you still give us a ballpark figure of how much is spent on the sort of boring maintenance stuff each year, and what's been done since that Jacobs report specifically around this issue? With
the caveat of defining what is the boring stuff. Yeah. We are currently investing about £1 to £1.1 billion a year. Yeah. At least half of that about goes into maintenance improvement of the current airports. So you can say we're looking at least £500 million currently going into what you describe as the more boring stuff.
So the £1 billion sort of on-site ring main thing, that's sort of it's a large, very large investment, but it's not sort of logarithmically out of step with what you're spending, for example, in a typical year on this sort of thing.
No.
During the day, I planted myself into Compass Centre, Heathrow's ops control kind of area, and tried to convey to Heathrow the urgency of getting decisions made, information out. British Airways had let me know that T5 for them was operating and available to operate in the morning. They checked in with NATS that the runway was okay, NATS could operate effectively. So they really did want to be able to, one, receive repatriation flights. So some of those flights that were stuck in Europe with visa problems and various other things, how to get those back in. Now those did come back, some of those came back in late in the day, but T5 could have been ready to receive those late morning, is our conjecture. In addition to that, there was opportunity also to get flights out of T5, an opportunity for that. And we could have actually made further arrangements in terms of moving passengers, is my feeling.
We heard from Mr. Wicking some queries around Terminal 5. Do you feel that some of the terminals might have been able to be opened safely, or at least be able to be reopened sooner?
I think that is one of the reasons we have instituted the Kelly Review, is to establish exactly that. It's worth knowing that the fact that the lights were on at Terminal 5, which is entirely correct, doesn't mean the terminal was operational. We didn't have all CCTV, we didn't have fire surveillance. The fire systems would work, so if you pull the fire alarm, the border would come down, but the fire surveillance systems of the airport was down, so we didn't know whether the systems were up and safe. All that had to be secured before we started operation. We had very close cooperation. I spoke several times with Sean Doyle, who's the CEO of BA, on that. We also had some of the fueling safety shutoffs that were not working. We had to ensure they were working. This all happened around 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So all of that had to be ensured.
So I think we now understand that backup generators were working as expected, that by the morning there was access to power. But you keep telling us it takes 10 hours to rewire everything. Does that sound resilient, the 10-hour period?
I think under a event like this one, which is as unlikely as has been described, that is the resilience that is in place. That is the playbook that is in place. I think the NISA report and the Calview will review that and say, should we have more resilience? But that will come at a cost. It is so that we have the regulatorily required resilience in place for our safety systems. Beyond that, we rely on partners, as we do for many other things in the airport. We have to remember that there's not endless seamless switchover for everything in the airport, and also not in an unprecedented event like this one, which should not happen. And we are still at a stage where we don't know why it happened.
I want to go back to the fact that inbound flights were not being allowed to land. So we're being told that the safety critical systems worked. Can you just explain what the safety critical systems are? Because you're also saying that it wasn't safe, in effect, to get passengers to come in because it wasn't possible to process them. So what is a safety critical system and what is just something that you deem unsafe?
There are two levels of safety here, if I may start there. There's the level of the aerodrome safety level, so that is, can aircraft operate safely at our aerodrome, and there is the concerns around passenger safety and health and safety concerns that we have to take care of both of them and consider both when we would do. Essential safety systems are things like airfield lighting, the control tower, telephone exchange, the fire station, our control center, fire pressurized main systems, other fire systems, general fuel farm, and so on. These are the essential systems that means that we can actually take down an aircraft and land it.
Okay, so you've landed it.
Then
so
we have all.
Now, what's
then we
the
have
safety problem.
Then we have
the passengers
all the operational systems that are required to handle, and that would be border force, for example. That would be baggage systems. That would be maybe more importantly in this case, air bridges to actually get people out of aircraft. So all the things that you see in the airport every day, lighting in some cases, emergency lighting was on in Terminal 2. So there are many critical systems. Then comes CCTV, fire surveillance, which I mentioned those because they were specifically not working for a period of time. Also access systems. So the locking of doors, we need to make sure the airport is secure and the border is secure, that people cannot pass. All of those were affected also in Terminal 5.
Nigel seemed to suggest earlier that some of these things could have been done manually. Would you like to respond to that point?
Manually, I don't understand that. Oh, you can say that we should have done things...
steps instead of bridges.
I
move people around the airport, border force.
I think this is one of the reasons we set up the killer view, to make sure that we can ensure that on the day, it was clearly our evaluation that we did that as fast as we could, with due regard to the safety of our passengers. Could that have done a little bit faster? We will have to look at that, but we are talking, minutes, as in maybe an hour or two. We're not talking longer than that, because I know that systems were out of function. We had a meeting at 10 o'clock where fuel lines were still a question, and we cannot operate without automatic fire switch off and our fuel lines.
When you say passenger safety, what exactly do you mean?
In our case, that is the process of safely getting passengers out of aircraft, getting them through customs. As when we talk arrivals.
I accept that it's potentially more risky to have steps than a bridge.
Exactly, for example.
Use steps all the time to get.
We also had not had CCTV. and we didn't have fire surveillance. And I think this is a question for the Kelly report. Hindsight is very easy. Don't forget, we have to ensure that all systems are not just seen to be working, but are actually tested and working. And I know that the lights were on a T5 and it looked as if it worked, but there were systems not working, and we have to make sure that these systems are working. This decision are taken by our incident commander, who is trained for this and whose responsibility it is on a personal level to make sure that works. It is not about saying, well, it looks as if it works, we like to operate. These are serious concerns, and we need to make sure they work. And we are, as we talked about, at 10 o'clock, at the meeting at 10 o'clock, it was reported that fuel valves were not working. Now, we are then talking that we declared it opened at 2 o'clock, so we're talking hours here. This is an evaluation. As you say, if we have gotten this wrong, we might be sitting here today having a very different discussion about why people got injured, and I think it would have been a much more serious discussion. So there is a margin within which our people have to take very serious safety decisions, and that is what they are trained for, and that is what they do, and that require that every single system is up and running, tested, and safe.